For years, the border between the United States and Canada stood as a symbol of ease and mutual respect. No paperwork hassles, no visible tension, just free movement and friendly exchanges. But recently things feel different. Canadians are now getting fingerprinted. Phones searched. The border, once considered the most relaxed in the world, has taken on a new tone. The question now is, are Canadians still being embraced or just barely accepted? And is this the quiet beginning of a deeper shift? One that's slowly unfolding without most of us realizing? Make sure you stick around for number 5, because that's the one most travelers haven't caught on to yet. Before we get into it, tap like and subscribe. This isn't just another travel heads up, it's a sign that even the warmest borders can suddenly turn cold. Number 1. The 30-day limit. Every winter, close to 1 million Canadians head south to places like California, Arizona, or Florida to escape the cold. For years this was simple. A half-year stay, no paperwork, no questions asked, but now there's a change. A U.S. regulation now asks Canadian visitors to register with immigration authorities if they'll be staying beyond 30 days. It's part of a broader initiative to monitor extended visits. The process? Easy on paper, but most travelers don't even realize it exists, and that's where it gets tricky. Immigration lawyers say confusion is climbing. Snowbird groups are pushing back. Warnings have already started rolling in. The Canadian Snowbird Association insists this was never intended for casual tourists, but it's being enforced that way. And the impact? It's showing up in the numbers. According to recent stats, Canadian vehicle re-entries from the United States plunged by nearly a third this March compared to the same month last year. This isn't just a form, it's a change in tone, a pivot from open trust to quiet watchfulness. And for snowbirds used to half a year of freedom, that 30-day cutoff feels less like a rule and more like a silent test. A test that leaves you wondering, are you being welcomed back or just allowed in? Number 2. Your device, their rules. Crossing into the U.S. used to feel straightforward. You'd hand over your passport, answer a few basic questions, maybe mention your destination. For most Canadians, it felt more like stepping into a neighbor's house than passing through a checkpoint. But that sense of ease is fading, especially when your phone is part of the inspection. Under American law, border agents can now examine your digital devices, phones, laptops, tablets, without needing a warrant. They're allowed to scroll through messages, view photos, check your browsing activity, and even access your social feeds. And there's no legal way to say no. A recent investigation by a major Canadian broadcaster highlighted the rising unease about these searches. Some travelers now fear they'll be denied entry simply based on what's stored on their phone, whether it's political views, religious beliefs, or just personal content. One civil rights advocate put it bluntly, "You're revealing your whole life and that life could be held against you." In response, even Canadian officials are telling citizens to expect this level of digital intrusion when entering the U.S. And it's not because you're a suspect, it's because the search is broad, sweeping, and without boundaries. Old jokes, memes, or conversations from years back could now raise red flags. The border is still physically open, but it's turning into something else entirely. You don't just hand over your ID anymore, you hand over your digital identity. When a travel advisory comes from a national government, people take notice. But this warning didn't originate from officials. It came from one of Canada's most respected academic voices. The Canadian Association of University Teachers, which represents over 70,000 faculty members, researchers, and educators, issued a rare and strongly worded alert against traveling to the U.S. It wasn't vague. The message specifically advised against visiting if you're part of a marginalized group, whether you're transgender, part of a racial minority, politically outspoken, or otherwise vulnerable to profiling. The concern? A troubling trend of harassment, intrusive questioning, and unexplained detainments at U.S. entry points. This isn't about politics. It's about personal safety. The advisory tells travelers to clean their devices, limit what data they carry, and prepare to be flagged, not for what you've done, but for who you are. It warns that Canadians may face interrogation, delays, or outright refusal at the border, without any formal explanation, especially if they match the profile of those already being singled out. In quiet response, universities across the country are adjusting internal policies. Legal teams are stepping in. Trips to academic conferences in places like Chicago, Boston, and New York, once seen as routine, are being reconsidered or quietly canceled. Because when the nation's scholars start saying maybe it's not worth the risk, that's not a small hesitation, that's a signal. Number 4, the subtle retreat. Not all changes shout through headlines. Some reveal themselves in the silence. It's the hush on once busy highways, the empty seats on buses, the hotel bookings that vanish without notice. In recent months, travel from Canada to the U.S. has dipped. Vehicle crossings are down sharply. Reservations in border towns like those in Maine and Michigan are dropping fast. One motel manager in a beach town said it plainly, "We're seeing cancellations we haven't had in years, and they're all from Canadians." But this isn't just about data points. It's about something more emotional, the change in atmosphere. Tour operators along the Ontario and Quebec borders say travelers aren't angry. They're apprehensive. People aren't eager to risk being questioned, searched, or held up at the border. Not for a day trip, not for a shopping run, not even for the yearly family vacation. So they're pulling back, quietly, cautiously. The border technically remains open, the lanes are still there. But the unspoken feeling, "of course you're welcome," is fading. Because when average Canadians start saying maybe not this year, it's not just their plans that are changing. It's the relationship itself. Number 5, treated differently. This isn't something you can easily document, but if it's happened to you, you know it's real. Canadians with names that sound Middle Eastern, those with South Asian roots, or anyone who identifies as Muslim, are encountering a different level of scrutiny at the border. Longer conversations, harsher tones, more detailed inspections, and often, no explanation at all. There's no official rule on this, no public memo, but it's happening, quietly, often, and not to everyone equally. Legal organizations and civil rights advocates on both sides of the border have started speaking out. What they're seeing isn't deportations or arrests, it's discomfort applied selectively. And it's not just about changing policies, it's about how Canadians are being perceived. A recent poll revealed a sharp drop in the number of Americans who consider Canada a close ally. Just 2 years ago, it was over 80%. Now it's in the mid-60s. That's not just a number, it reflects something deeper. Being Canadian used to mean you were met with respect and fairness when you crossed the border, a kind of trust that came with the passport. But now, for some travelers, that welcome depends less on where you're from and more on what you look like, or who someone thinks you might be. Number 6, turned away without explanation. You can follow every rule, book a flight, carry the right visa, have your return date ready, and still, it might not be enough. Just ask Jasmine Mooney, a Canadian actress and businesswoman. She was heading to Los Angeles for a professional event. Her U.S. work visa was valid. Her plans were clear. But at a land crossing near Mexico, she was stopped, detained, and held for almost 2 weeks. She later said it felt humiliating. Eventually, she was deported and barred from coming back. And she's not the only one. More Canadians are reporting sudden denials at the border, often without warning or cause. Sometimes it's because an officer didn't understand the travel details. Other times, there's no explanation at all. There's no appeal, no review process, just a note on your file and a closed door. Today, crossing the border doesn't just depend on what you bring, it depends on how you're perceived. You don't need to break a rule. You just have to make someone uneasy. Number 7. Once flagged, always watched. The most unsettling part? You might never find out why you were stopped. And once you are, it might never stop happening. More Canadians are noticing a disturbing trend. If you've ever been questioned, held up, or denied once, your chances of being singled out again go way up. It doesn't matter if you have new documents or a clean history. Even years later, you're still being pulled aside. There's no official list for Canadians, no formal notification, but travelers can tell when something changes. The questions become sharper. The tone feels colder. You're not treated like a person anymore, more like a profile. Even Canada's government warns that U.S. border decisions are final. They aren't open to challenge, and they're rarely explained. You might never know what caused it, and you can't clear it once it starts. This isn't just border enforcement anymore, it's long-term memory, quiet, relentless, and nearly impossible to undo. For many, the crossing no longer feels like a checkpoint. It feels like a record that follows you. And being remembered, that might be the most uncomfortable part of all. So what does this really mean? The border didn't slam shut, but to many Canadians it doesn't feel open anymore either. This isn't about one new rule or one bad story, it's about something deeper, a shift in how much trust remains. The quiet question spreading across this country is simple: am I still welcome? If you've crossed into the United States recently, we'd love to hear your story, because your experience might help others recognize what's really happening. And if this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe, because how we're treated at the border today might reshape how we travel tomorrow.